FTC, David Vladeck, was investigating whether Facebook had been deceiving its users. What he found was that Facebook had been sharing users' personal data with so-called third-party developers, companies that built games and apps for the platform.
And our view was that, it's fine for Facebook to collect this data, but sharing this data with third parties without consent was a no-no.
But at Facebook, of course, we believe that our users have complete control of their information.
The heart of our cases against companies like Facebook was deceptive conduct. That is, they did not make it clear to consumers the extent to which their personal data would be shared with third parties.
The FTC had another worry. They saw the potential for data to be misused because Facebook wasn't keeping track of what the third parties were doing with it.
They had, in my view, no real control over the third-party app developers that had access to the site. They could have been anyone. There was no due diligence. Anyone, essentially, who could develop a third-party app could get access to the site.
It could have been somebody working for a foreign adversary.
Certainly. It could have been somebody working, for the Russian government.
Facebook settled with the FTC without admitting guilt, and under a consent order, agreed to fix the problems.
Was there an expectation at the time of the consent order that they would staff up to ensure that their users' data was not leaking out all over the place?
Yes. That was the point of this provision of the consent order that required them to identify risks to personal privacy and to plug those gaps quickly.
Inside Facebook, however, with the IPO on the horizon, they were also under pressure to keep monetizing all that personal information, not just fix the FTC's privacy issues.
9 months into my first job in tech, I ended up in an interesting situation where, because I had been the main person who was working on privacy issues with respect to Facebook platform, which had many, many, many privacy issues, it was a real hornet's nest. And I ended up in a meeting with a bunch of the most senior executives of the company, and they went around the room and they basically said, well, who's in charge? And the answer was me, because no one else really knew anything about it. You'd think that a company of the size and importance of Facebook, would have really focused and had a team of people and, very senior people working on these issues, but it ended up being me.
What did you think about that at the time?
I was horrified. I didn't think I was qualified.
Parakilas tried to examine all the ways that the data Facebook was sharing with third-party developers could be misused.
My concerns at the time were that I knew that there were all these malicious actors who would do a wide range of bad things, given the opportunity, given the ability to target people based on this information that Facebook had. So I started thinking through what are the worst case scenarios of what people could do with this data. And I showed some of the kinds of bad actors that might try to attack. And I shared it out with a number of senior executives. And the response was muted, I would say. I got the sense that this just wasn't their priority. They weren't that concerned about the vulnerabilities that the company was creating. They were concerned about revenue growth and user growth.
And that was expressed to you, or that's something that you just gleaned from the interactions?
From the lack of a response, I gathered that, yeah.
And how senior were the senior executives?
Very senior, among the top 5 executives of the company.
Facebook has said it took the FTC order seriously, and despite Parakilas' account, had large teams of people working to improve users' privacy. But to Parakilas and others inside Facebook, it was clear the business model continued to drive the mission. In 2012, Parakilas left the company, frustrated.
I think there was a certain arrogance there that led to a lot of bad long-term decision-making. The long-term ramifications of those decisions was not well thought through at all, and it's got us to where we are right now.